Hey friends, welcome to another episode of She's Got Gumption. I'm your host, Wendy J. Olson. On this podcast, we share stories. Stories of women overcoming impossible odds, heroic feats of faith, and ordinary women doing extraordinary things. These women are the ones you pass in Target or at the grocery store. You sit beside them in the carpool lane or when you're waiting for the light to turn green. They're ordinary women, just like you and me. And just like you, they've got gumption. This is She's Got Gumption. Hey guys, welcome back for another episode. Listen, I have an amazing story. It's actually a companion story to one we recorded a few months ago. As most of you guys know, I took a month off of July to just reset after some real losses. So I am back. Yay. And I have another great episode for you. So this is my conversation with Deja's mom. I recorded an interview with Deja Richardson, a trafficking survivor, back in June or even May at this point. And I just knew that I needed to get her mom on here. And good thing I know Paula. Paula loves me. I love Paula. So Paula agreed to come and share her story. And this is our conversation. You guys, if you haven't listened to Deja's story, it's not necessary that you listen to it first and then listen to this. You just get to hear this mama's heart. Man, if you have raised kids for any amount of time, you know what it's like to have your heart broken by your child. But to know that see that your child has been in pain and is going through something difficult, hard, worse than you ever expected. This is the story, the interview for you, because Paula puts it all out there and shares her experience of what she was going through while Deja was caught in trafficking for 4 very long years. So this is my conversation with Deja's mom, Paula Richardson. Paula, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. Me and your daughter recorded, oh my gosh, it's probably been a couple months at this point now.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know how much I love Deja and just her story and everything. And I was like, there's the woman behind this story that prayed and survived and walked the long, hard path. And that's the mama's heart we need to hear. So,
oh man,
I knew I had to have you on. So can you just share with everybody who you are and what you do, what you're about, where you're at, all the little details?
Well, let me see. As you said, I'm Paula, and I think that pretty much sums it up. I'm a mother, and that's my most important job. I think that's the most important reason that I'm here. And I'm Deja's mother. I also have 2 other kids. Deja's got a younger sister and a younger brother, 16 and 20. And I'm a single parent, been single parenting for quite some time. And so since I do take my job so very seriously, if any of my kids ever find themselves, and I've always told them this, if you ever find yourself in danger, even if you can't call me, know I'm on the way. And
Right.
so, I think my story, I thank Deja for my story, because had there not been Deja's story, I wouldn't even have this story. It was a rough road. It was a hard road, but it was necessary. I think it was necessary to what's to come later. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I think it was necessary. I mean, because if you believe scripture like I believe scripture, then the scripture says that we overcome by the testimony of the saints. So I tell Deja all the time, and I teach my kids all the time, that the things that we go through, they're not for us, but they're for, somebody that's going to come later on, so you can help them overcome the same thing. And so If I had to describe myself, I would just say I'm dedicated to being a mother. I remember I think it was a movie, Erin Brockovich, where she was describing herself as being the lion, a lioness, and her baby was her cub, and
Yeah.
she said in that movie, it's my God-given right, to protect my cub. And that, I mean, in spite of everything else I do, I got a job. I do 40 hours a week, just like about everybody else. I got hobbies and things like that. But I think, in spite of all that, my main goal and my most important goal is to protect my cubs. And so that's what brings us here today.
Right, right.
Yes,
Man,
ma'am.
I love that you shared about the testimony and going before, because that was, exactly what I thought of, is that, some other mom is going through some hard trial. I mean, we just talked about
Definitely.
raising teenagers in and of itself is like walking through fire. But but those of us who have gone before and done the hard things and walked the hard path and seen their kids, off, and like the prodigal child, or in your case, your daughter was trafficked, for several years. I think you have something to share for that person that's walking through that now.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's so powerful to have wisdom in your life, from the people who have gone before.
Definitely.
So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
I met you through your best friend at a party.
Mhm. Mhm.
We had worked with Aristi at the Generation One school, and I met you at one of the Pruning
Mhm.
Hooks ministry nights, where someone shares their story. I
Yes,
remember it was
ma'am.
it was Kat that shared her story that night too.
Mhm.
Kat
It
French,
was.
yeah, from Elijah Rising. It's so powerful. And then you had mentioned that you thought, or I can't remember if you thought she was being trafficked, or you like knew she was being trafficked at that point.
Yeah, by that time I knew. And you know what? It's funny because I remember that night just like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Because by then I knew what was going on. I didn't have a lot of education on it at that time, you
Right.
know, because I found out through my journey that there were a whole lot of other people like me. We thought prostitution was just that. It was prostitution until I found myself in this situation. It just, I had no idea what I was up against really. So by the time we met, I was really just kind of searching and seeking um, for anything. I was reaching for whatever I could because I knew my child was out there. And I told Ariste at that time, man, if you know anybody, I don't care. I'm taking suggestions. And so when we ended up there, that night, to hear Kat and her testimony, and then to meet all you ladies that were there, I was telling Ariste, you know what? I know that was nothing but God. Because I was there, I was clueless, but even though I was clueless, I was searching. And I think that's really important.
Yes.
Um, and so I found myself in the right place at the right time. And when we all kind of linked up, that's when I just kind of came into the knowledge of what we were really up against. And so, yeah, that was a blessing meeting for real.
And I just remember your mama heart was just like on fire, like just like, let's go. And like I'm all about like let's charge the gates, and I'm like, let's go right now, like
Right.
I mean, they
Yes,
would have
ma'am.
had like 20 suburban women driving their minivans down, look,
I'm telling you.
down
I'm
this and that,
telling you.
like, get in the car, come on.
I'm telling
Oh,
you. Yes,
our
ma'am.
our little young novice hearts.
Yeah, we just want to save, we want to help,
We
and then
do, we
it's
do.
so important. You find out all the information about it and you see how hard and how painful it is just to even know about it. So you try to put yourself in the position, in my case, I try to put myself in the position of Deja, and I'm thinking, knowing what I know, it's hurting me,
Right.
so I can't even imagine, what she's feeling like on the other side of it. So yeah, definitely. You definitely want to jump in and do something about it real quick.
Right, right. So take us back to the beginning. Um,
Okay.
when everything first started, when she was on the dating apps and what that looked like from your perspective, what were
Mhm.
you seeing? Um, did you see it uh, like start? Did you see like the culmination of it, or was it further on down the road before you were like, wait a minute, this is actually what's happening?
You know what? It kind of just gradually happened. Because Deja was young. I know she told you how old she was. She was around 17,
Mhm.
and she was really, really smart. Good
She
grades,
is.
the
Oh my
whole
gosh.
nine. You know, I started kind of noticing little by little, just little changes in her. Um, and now here we are in 2020. I know because we've had conversations about the bullying and things like that she experienced. But at that time, she wasn't speaking about them, but I would see little small changes kind of being
Mhm.
made in her. And so I want to say when she started, right before she ended up leaving, I started kind of noticing little small things, but it just wasn't, I'm thinking here we are, we're in the country, you don't know anything but church, and school. So I'm thinking even though you're kind of doing a little bit different, it's a teenage thing. And that was my first kid. So I'm thinking maybe this is what I got to go through because I wasn't that easy on my parents.
Right.
You know, even though I
Right.
was raised in church, it wasn't that easy on them. So I'm thinking maybe that's just kind of what we have to walk through and kind of traverse through. But no way did I think, anything like this was on the horizon for us. Um, so by the time I actually kind of got a feeling, it was when it was more of a boyfriend girlfriend situation.
Okay.
And so that's the way it came to me. And it just was something in my spirit from the beginning. At the first meeting, I said, something's not right. I just don't feel right. At that time, I had
When
no
you
knowledge of human trafficking when I
when
first met the guy.
okay, yeah, when you first met him. That's okay.
Yeah, I had no knowledge of human trafficking or anything, and it was presented as a boyfriend girlfriend situation.
Right.
But at that moment, my spirit never was right,
Mm.
and from the first meeting, I told him right to his face, hey, I don't have a good feeling. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't feel good about it. And I'm going to keep my eye on you.
Ooh.
So at
Yeah.
that time, I never knew, but I had a feeling about something. Um, and so, yeah, after that, it just kind of got quiet. Everything kind of grew silent because she was gone. And for us on this end, it just looked like that was her boyfriend that I really just didn't have a good taste in my mouth for.
Right. Which, like you said, you always wonder, is this like a teenage rebellion thing? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
this what they have to go through? And then I love that you mentioned, you live in a small country town. The only thing she knows is church. And you feel like it gives you this nice warm blanket of like
Mm-hmm.
safety and you're in a
Yep.
bubble. And so you're fine. And then here comes the internet, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
Exactly. Exactly.
we tell our son all the time, the internet is not a safe place. Like, it's just
At
not.
all. I'm telling you.
Like, I've made some really great friends over the internet, but
Hmm.
I've also,
Yep.
seen everything else that's out. Just
Right. And it's really just it's dependent upon who's using it.
right.
So
And
yeah.
how safe you're being on it too. I mean, I
Right.
think my son probably thinks I'm like a Nazi because I'm like, no internet for you, like you're on
Right.
it too much. I'm like, you have no idea, child, the darkness and the
I'm
craziness,
telling you, we just
the
trying to save you
access.
from some stuff. That's
I
all.
know. He has no idea. No idea.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't think our kids at that age really fully comprehend it, especially because the internet was invented in our generation. So we
Hmm.
don't even have a full grasp on it. And then like the age of, like social media and everything else. And we're still just learning the ropes,
Yep.
learning it as we
Yep.
go.
Yes, ma'am.
So speak to the time that you met this boyfriend, because like she said, he was her boyfriend to her,
Hmm.
from the time, and you had a weird feeling. Fast forward to the time where you were like, something's wrong.
You know what? It was after my grandson was born. In fact, it was on the day of my grandson's birth that
Mm.
I knew for sure something just was not right. Um, and there was just a lot of things that just looked wrong. Let's just take for instance, if you're having a baby and you're in labor, the baby's dad or your husband, he's gonna be there, he's gonna be excited, and it was like that, but it wasn't like that. There was like extra people, yeah, and it just was weird. And in my family, we were looking around thinking, okay, something is just strange. He made like different remarks during the labor that made me know, okay, something is just not right.
Something's not adding up.
Yeah. And even though there was not active trafficking at the time because she's in labor, there was just red flags. It was just something. We got an extra person out here. We don't know who that is. That doesn't look right. So it was at that point that I was like, okay, we need to take a look and see what we are dealing with, because this is not a normal boyfriend girlfriend situation, and we probably should get to the bottom of it.
So give us an example, if you can, of like what was said or who was there or whatever, that it like you said, you had a feeling in your spirit, but like what would be a good example of something that you're like, look out for this, like if you hear this or you see this,
Well,
something
I can give
tangible.
you one. I'll give you one, and it's when she was in labor, and it's the weirdest thing, Wendy, because it's not something you expect
Sure.
in a delivery room. And she was at the point where she was pushing. And that's the most important point. I'm leaning on my daughter, giving her the strength, helping her get through it. But he made one remark, and he asked the doctor, he said, "Is that going to be right? How long is it going to take until that's right?"
Not the time, bro. Not the time.
And
Wow.
that
Okay.
one comment, and see,
Yeah.
in the small town, we all pretty much know everybody, so we were familiar with the doctor knew our family. So when he said that, of course I'm looking like a deer caught in headlights, and the doctor's looking at me like, record scratch. So
Right.
immediately I'm thinking, okay, yeah,
Mm.
what kind of question is that for a time like this?
Right. Right.
Yeah, and so that was the thing that kicked everything off for me, because I'm thinking, what is that about?
Hmm. Had she already been, like, I guess I wouldn't know the word. Like, had she already been um, soliciting or being trafficked at that time?
Yeah, and see, at
Okay,
that time, I didn't know it though.
but you didn't know it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, and she had been. I just wasn't aware of it at that time.
and so from then, you knew something wasn't right. Did she like get to come home with you, or and did you get to help with the baby, or were you like kind of cut off right away?
It was the worst and the best day ever. Cause on birthday, we're there, and we actually ended up getting in an altercation there at the
Mhm.
hospital.
You and him?
Yes,
Okay.
and I was escorted out, so immediately I was cut off.
What was the fight about?
Well, he came in and he was being disrespectful. I
Mm.
mean, Deja had just had the baby about an hour before, so she's tired. The baby's in the room resting. I'm in there, sitting, enjoying the fact that, whoa, here we are. And he had been gone forever. She was hungry. Um, and she asked us to, hey, give him a call, see where he is, and, tell him, hey, I need my charger, because he was supposed to be getting the charger and everything. Everybody had taken pictures of the baby except for her.
Yeah.
And so I guess, he was upset because we had called around trying to see, how long are you going to be? Yeah. So by the time he made it to the hospital, he came in and he was, loud talking her and just being disrespectful. And of course, as a mom, I'm not gonna let you do
Hmm.
that.
Right.
you know,
She just birthed a human. You shut your mouth and
right,
kiss her feet.
right. So we exchanged words. And then it moved to a point where things looked where they were going to get a little physical, and so the hospital staff you know asked us to calm
Yeah.
things down. Authorities were called, things like that. But I was immediately cut off, like right at that moment.
Wow.
um and it crushed me like nothing I can even explain to you.
Right.
you know because I was there. And this was my first grandbaby. And I was excited. And then all of a sudden there was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like I was immediately cut off, and after that he whisked her away.
And how long again before you saw her and your grandson?
I saw them again. I want to say he was about 2 months old.
That's hard.
Yeah. Uh, and I got to spend some time with him, and so then it was kind of normal. It was becoming what a normal was for us, where I would see him and keep him a couple days, and then they'd come and get him. And it was almost what I feel like now was pacify your mama
Mm,
so she doesn't cause any fuss,
sure.
because her main concern is this grandbaby. So let's make sure she still gets to see him, where
Yeah.
she doesn't cause any stink,
Right.
So I would see him every now and then. But once I came to the knowledge of what was actually happening,
Yeah.
that's when my communication and contact stopped.
And did you confront once you realized, oh, this is actually what's going on? This is not a boyfriend, girlfriend, loving, just had a baby relationship. This is a business transaction.
Mhm. Mhm. I did. I couldn't speak to Deja about it. I mean, because it's such a controlling situation and a controlled environment.
Right.
Every contact that I would have with her
Was
was
monitoring.
was monitored
Mhm.
and coached. Um, she was told what to say, and at points there were times where I could hear whispering, telling her what to say or telling her, okay, that's enough, get off the phone. So it wasn't something I could just directly speak to,
Right.
but I did make them aware that I was aware of what was going on.
And at that point, did that um, slow down communication or hinder
Oh yeah,
action
because
with?
let me tell you, let me back up, because the way I actually found out for sure,
Mm-hmm.
was a journal that she had left behind in
Oh,
one of the visits where she came to pick up my grandson. And she had left a journal there. Matter of fact, she was dropping off my grandson. And after she had left, I'm cleaning and I saw this journal. I was actually at a Reese's house, in fact, hanging out there for the weekend. And I just happened to take the journal with me, not knowing what's in it. No idea,
mm,
you know. Um, but I started reading, and I started reading Deja's own words.
wow.
And so that's what let me know exactly what was happening. There was no question. Once I read it in her own handwriting, I knew
Mm,
for sure what was happening, and that point broke me like nothing. I had never been broken like that ever.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough one.
So thank God you were there with Ariste.
Hmm.
Um, tell us about that. Like what? I mean, I can't even imagine. So
Let me tell you, it
yeah.
was like, Wendy, it was like everything stopped for me.
Mm,
Like, and I had my grandson. He was 3 months old at the time, but he was sleeping. So I was spending that time to see what was going on in this journal. And so each line was like a bullet,
mm,
or like I was getting hit by a Mack truck. Like every time I turned the page, it was like something else was coming to crush me. And it was just taking a little bit more out of me each page I read.
mm,
It was just like, because I could see her heart. I could see that she was scared. I could see that, she was terrified. And it was like at that point, my whole world just kind of stopped. It came to a screeching halt. I got the worst headache ever. I called the restay. I said, "Hey, I know you're at work, but I need you to come. I have like a real situation." She came running, and I had my other best friend, Natalie, at the time. She came running over, and they just sat there, and I sat there in complete silence. All I could do was just cry. Tears just kind
yeah.
of streamed down my face, and Because what do you say to that? What do you do when you find out that is what your child is going through, and you find it out in their own handwriting?
Yeah.
You find it out from them. So it was like she was saying it, and I don't know, it's just like everything for me just stopped. And I don't know, it was like I went into a hole, the deepest hole ever. I became depressed, I became angry. I can't even say angry, I was pissed off. I
Right.
was everything all at once, but I couldn't even grasp one emotion because there were so many things just kind of racing through me all at the same time. Yeah, it was just the worst day ever. It was the worst.
And then she came back to pick up her son.
Yep,
And
what
then,
happened was, yep, she ended up coming back to pick him up. They had been out of the state, and they had come back, and she came to pick him up, and it was just so weird because when she came to get him, she walked in and she was looking like, I have a problem. That's just how
Mhm.
she looked. She looked like, I need help. I have an issue, but I came to pick up Princeton. That's what she was saying. I came to pick up the baby so we could go, but her body wasn't saying that.
Right.
And
Right.
so we're looking at her. It was me and my family at the time, and she finally said, "Hey, I don't want to go back, but he's not gonna let me stay." And so at that time we were like, "Well, hey, if you don't want to go, then you're not gonna go."
Right.
And I told you, Wendy, I'm a mama, and so if
Right.
she doesn't want to be with you, then guess what? Drive off.
Right.
And so that's the way it went. But he ended up coming back, and that's what they do. They find a way to come back and get him again. And so that next time he picked him up, um, and that was it.
And then she was
That was
gone.
it. She was gone. I didn't know anything about how she was being trafficked at the time. I just knew she was being trafficked. And that was it. She was gone, and then there was no more.
And how long did that last?
That lasted uh almost 4 years.
Wow. So
Yeah.
for 4 years, did you hear from her?
Sporadically. It was kind of, and it wasn't really hearing from her as much as I was hearing from him.
Mm,
Um, he would make sure that she could stay in contact with my grandmother
okay.
um, regularly, but any conversation that was being had with me was because he had in some way gotten wind of the fact that I was out there trying to figure out what was going on. And
Mm,
so based on what she told me, now on this side of it, he would threaten and have her call me to say all kind of stuff. And so by the time I would hear from her, she would be screaming, "Mama," just all kind of craziness. So that's the communication I was actually physically getting from my kid.
yeah.
It wasn't nothing, it wasn't anything where I could say, okay, so Deja, hey, let me know where you are. I'm coming to get you. Hey, it was never anything sensible. It was just him. Hey, no, call and get your mama together.
Mm.
Yeah, and so that was the communication I was having with my kid for a long time, and it was just sporadic moments, and they would be all of 1 or 2 minutes, if that.
I remember when she was picked up and put in jail for a short time.
Uh
What
huh.
was that like for you? Because I mean, if I have to think about like for us, like praying, not really like knowing her other, just like knowing your heart, knowing her story, and just consciously like standing on the ground, right, with you and
Hmm.
praying for her while she was gone. I just remember thinking, man, Paula has to be relieved that at least she knows where she is right now.
That's the word I was gonna say. Relieved.
Yeah.
That's the word I would have used. Um, and I was relieved because even though I didn't like where she was,
Right.
I knew where she was.
Right. I always think about that. I've talked with several women that like have lost children, right? And I always think about one time this woman said, yes, he's gone and he's passed away, but I know where he is.
Hmm.
And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, if that's the only solace I can have, I mean, that to know, to have that relief and be like, I know where Deja is right now. I know
Yep.
where she's sleeping. And
Yep.
she wasn't in there for very long.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
What
Yeah,
was that
it
like
just
after?
after um it was back to the same thing for me.
Mm,
I thought that, when she got released, she would be released to me. I would get her. We would, go back and
right.
figure how to start here and start new. I mean, because what I always was conscious of was the little girl that I'm getting back is not the little girl that went out.
Right. Right.
So I was always ready to say, hey, let's start here. Wherever
Right.
here is, let me introduce myself to the new you. You tell me who you are, and let's
Right.
grow from here. And that's what I thought was gonna happen. But it didn't. He was there.
Right. Didn't you try to visit her and she wouldn't see you or something?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was one of those situations because she was in a treatment facility, and you had to be added to a visitors list in order to come. And she never did add anybody,
Right.
and I knew why, but it was just still killing me. I'm thinking, I just want to come. I just need you to see my face. I need to look at your face,
Right.
so you can know I'm out here. I know I've told you I'm never gonna stop, but I knew everything she had been told
Right.
while she wasn't with me. And so I needed her to see my face so she could also see my heart and see, hey, no matter where you've been, I'm still right here and I'm fighting
Yes.
like hell,
Right.
but it just never did happen. So that was a long, long journey. Long, long journey. And I think that's when I reached out to you guys, and I was so glad you guys sent her cards and Bibles and the whole nine. And at that time, she was communicating. That was before she had gotten transferred. And I thought it was gonna turn around. And she was like, "Yeah, Mama, I got a package from Miss Wendy and these ladies." And I was like, "Yeah, I told you, people are out there praying for you. I need you to understand that there are so many people. Some and some you don't know. Some you may never meet." They are praying for you, and we are all out here. And I would tell her, I just need you to be brave.
Right.
Just be brave. I don't care what threat has been, presented to you. I am not scared of any threat, is what you need
Right.
to understand as your mother. We just need you to be brave. Yeah, so that was that whole time where she was, gone away. It was still rough. And even after release, it seemed like it just kept getting rougher.
Hmm. It almost felt like, oh, I mean, they always say, for every 10 times that a woman leaves the life, they return 9. And it's
Hmm.
like, just
Uh-huh.
being like stabbed over and over again in your mama
Hmm.
heart. Like,
Let me tell you. Yes,
and
ma'am.
I mean, I imagine like knowing who Deja is, that she thought she was protecting you,
She did.
you know?
She did, and she verbalized that to me. She let me know that, after everything was over. Now that we're on this side, she was saying, "Mama, there were a lot of times where I thought I was protecting my family,
Right.
because of the things that were getting said, So
Right.
yeah, that's definitely one of the things that keeps those girls going back, because that's a big question for a lot of people. Well, why do they stay?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they leave? Well, I don't know
Fear.
what kind of stuff you've been through,
Right.
but if you've been through any amount of this stuff that some of these girls go through, it would be a different outlook, and maybe that question wouldn't even be a question.
I mean, you think of like the biggest tool for control is fear, right?
Yeah,
It's got to be
definitely.
number one, fear. I mean, that's what keeps us in line, right? That's why we're not
Hmm.
out like murdering people. And like, what keeps you
Right.
in your house when it's dark outside or you hear, and it's just fear and manipulation are two of the biggest tools for control. It's not a cage, it's not a locked door, it's not a locked cell, it's
Yep.
not a fence line or a security guard. It's fear.
Yeah, definitely, and fear will hold you hostage, you know,
Mm,
with no handcuffs.
that's a good
Fear
word.
holds you hostage with no locks. And
Right.
so yeah, it's once you've been on this side of it, it just looks different to you, and you ask different questions, I think.
Right, right. So let's talk about the day she came home.
Mm-hmm.
August 2017.
20 August 23rd.
August 23rd, coming
Yes,
up on
ma'am.
3 years now.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
remember Stay sending me a text, and then I heard nothing for a long time. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
somebody tell me what's going on. Um, so excited to hear. Just 2 words, Deja's home.
Mm-hmm.
What was
Mm-hmm.
that like? What was that like for you?
It was it was, you know what? It was bitter and it was sweet. Because even though she was home and we were all so ecstatic, we knew we weren't done fighting because I didn't
Right,
have my grandson. So
right.
for me, Deja being home was magnanimous. It was a
Mm,
great feeling. But it was still kind of just a kind of somber and solace moment because even though I was happy that my child was back, I knew my child was worried about her child.
yes,
And as a
yes.
mama, I was thinking, I know that feeling because I know that feeling. You
Right.
know, I've just been familiarized with that feeling, and so I felt her heart even in that moment. Even though we were overjoyed, we were still kind of just somber and just thinking, so what do we do now?
Mm. Tell me about the reunion.
The reunion, it was eventful. I mean, because it actually happened in the middle of a whole lot of stuff. She was in it was the last time she called me to actually need help.
Mm,
And of course I left my job and immediately. I didn't even turn my computers off or anything. My boss kind of was aware of what was going on.
yeah,
And I just jumped up. I said, "Hey, I gotta go get Deja." You know,
yeah.
I was just running and I'm burning 610 up. I'm pretty sure God was covering me because, girl, I know I should have got tickets.
Right.
Um, but by the time I got there, I really wasn't sure what I was going to, encounter. I
Mm,
just knew no matter what, I'm leaving here with my kid because this time, this call was different. And I can
right.
tell that it's over. And so I was excited about it. But when I got to her, my excitement was just kind of dashed. Um, I went to go to her and I put my hand on her so I could reach out to hug her, and she kind of winced in pain.
Mm, mm,
And so, what should have been a joyous reunion, and just full of joy and excitement from the moment that I touched her, when I realized that my touch hurt, I was
yeah,
thinking, wait a minute, and so it became something else. Yes, I was glad to have her, but I couldn't even hold her
right.
because he had hurt her,
Yeah.
and so we cried. Um, I was just glad to get her in the car. I tried to, kind of mask my excitement because I could see that she just wasn't as excited as I was.
Right.
I remember crying. I called my grandma and she was just crying. Because let me tell you, my grandma is a prayer and praise warrior. If you want somebody to praise with you, call my grandma. And
Oh,
so I called her and just immediately, thank you, Lord. We just
yeah.
immediately just go into a praise. So it was like a burden was lifted for us. The reunion was great. Um, I wanted to feed her. That's the first thing I wanted to do, because she was just skinny.
Hmm.
She looked just kind of like she hadn't eaten in a minute.
Yeah.
And so we took her to go get something to eat. And even then, it was just like, who is this person?
A shell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though she knew me, she was still looking at me like, and who are you?
Right.
And it was just
Mm,
it was a hard reunion. It's like, how are you strangers? And that's your daughter.
yeah. Yeah. Because not only has she been through a traumatic event, you
Yes.
have been too.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
And so you are
Absolutely.
strangers getting to know each other again and trying to feel this thing out. Her wondering if, you're her mama. So, like, is she in trouble? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
wondering, did I just lead one, scary situation and head into another,
Right, right.
Is
And that's,
mom mad, or is she like, what is she
yeah,
gonna do? Is she gonna kill him?
yeah,
I mean,
right,
I
right,
know that's what my kids would think. Like, is mom gonna
right.
go to jail for murdering this man? Yes, I will.
Right.
Totally.
You hear me? Yeah, and that was important. I'm glad that you kind of shine a light on that, because that was an important thing for me as well. I knew that we had been apart so long. And here's the thing, my kids know, and everybody who knows me know, I love my kids, but I'm pretty strict.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was already aware that she'd probably in the back of her mind be thinking, "Oh Lord, Mama's probably about to just go off and give it to me." But
Yeah.
all at the same time, I think because I'm Mama,
Right.
I knew that that wasn't gonna be what she needed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Um, you don't need a spanking. What you need is a hug.
Right. Right.
And it makes me think of the prodigal son. You
Yeah.
know, when he came back, his dad wasn't going, "You shouldn't have left, and you shouldn't have." You know what I'm saying? What he
Right.
said was, "Hey, kill the best calf,
Mm,
bring out the best stuff." And that's how I was feeling when I saw her and when I had her. Even though, yeah, we had the sadness, I was feeling like, "Hey, I don't care where you've been.
yeah.
I don't care what it is that you've been doing, whether it was your fault or whether it was someone else's fault. What I'm happy about is that you're here,
Right.
that you're alive, and that you're well, and that you're home. Now, all the other stuff, we don't even have to discuss it until you're ready to talk about it. What
Right.
I want to do is get on the road to healing and making you a whole person again.
Right.
And so, yeah, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't that guy. "Oh, if you wouldn't have done that, this wouldn't have happened."
I
You know,
told you so. Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so that's what I wanted to make sure I didn't do. I didn't want to inflict more pain and,
Right.
cause more wounds in a time where she was already free bleeding.
Yes. Good
You know,
word. Good word. It's been almost 3 years now that she's been home, out, safe. She is a pistol. She is on fire. I love that girl. She inspires me, man. I had to text her the other day. I'm like, you are freaking special. Okay. I don't know if you've heard that today, but you are damn special.
let me tell you, yes, ma'am. We were sitting talking. I think me and Deja stayed up talking one night until the sun came up.
Oh,
I
oh
couldn't even believe we were still talking. And I
yeah.
told her, I said, "You know what? I don't know how many times I'm gonna get to say this to you, but I want to tell you now. Like, I've told people, you are my hero, and I'll say it to anybody. And a lot of times kids look up to their parents, and it's very rare that you see a parent that goes, 'You know what? That's my hero.'" And
Yes.
and I can tell anybody, my Deja is one of my heroes. Because
Yes.
I don't know anybody anywhere that could go through the things that she has told me and come out on this side and want to fight. Let me tell you
Yes.
something. That did something in me. And so I told her, I said, yeah. Because I mean, a lesser person would have been like, "Hey, I'm out and that's it."
Right.
But she came out saying, "I'm out and let's go get them. Let's go get
Yep.
the rest of them and bring them out." And so, yeah, you
Mm,
can't help but to look up to something like that. You know what I'm saying?
yes. Oh my gosh, that gives me chills. When she walked out, let's go get the rest of them.
Yep.
Yes.
She was like, "And
Yes.
now let's go back." And I was thinking, "Hey, I'm all for it. You don't even know. I've been over here waiting for you to come so we can do this together."
Yes. What's y'all's relationship like now?
It is, let me tell you, she's sitting right here on my left-hand side right now. It is awesome. We talk every single day. And that's what I love.
Yeah.
I love going to bed knowing where all of my kids are,
Right.
knowing that, hey, the one that we've been praying for is right on the other side of town, or is right down the hallway, or and I know she's going to call in the morning before it's time for me to even wake up. She's going to be the first caller, and it's going to be Facebook video, and we're going to be chatting while I'm laying down. Deja, I'm not ready to get up yet, but
Yeah.
how's your morning going? So we are just close. And she's got the entity Haven, and she's brought me in, and we just shoulder to shoulder out here on this battlefield right now.
You are warriors together. I love that. I
Yes,
love it.
ma'am.
Y'all are amazing. I just have one more question for
Uh-huh.
you. What would you say to the mama who is going through the years of not hearing and walking this road just a few years behind you? What would you say as an encouragement to her?
I would say that's hard. That is so hard.
Mm.
Um, and I don't want to get emotional. Because I actually had a situation where somebody sent another mother to me,
Mm.
and I was thinking, why are you sending mothers to me, girl? I don't have this
I
together.
don't know what to say. Yeah.
Yeah, but what
But
would I
you
say?
do.
I,
Yeah.
I would tell them first and foremost, even though you're not able to physically put your hands on them and see them and know exactly where they are, um, as a mother, just kind of
Mm.
tune in because you still feel them.
Yes.
Um, and that's so crazy. I am crying. Lord have mercy. But you do feel them. You really do.
Mm.
I had many nights where I couldn't sleep because I was tossing and I was turning, just concerned. Because by the time I found out how this trafficking thing was actually done, I had gotten evidence and seen visual evidence of what was happening to my kid.
Mm.
It made it hard to sleep,
Yeah.
and I'd struggle, but I feel her.
Yeah.
And I think for me, even though it hurt, feeling is what I needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the times where you're feeling like you don't know what to do and you all you want is a conversation because you're gonna have so many days like that.
Right.
Well, all you want is to just hear their voice, and whether they're saying something you want to hear or not, you just want to hear it. When that day comes and you can't get what you want, you can't hear it, you can't have that phone call, tap into the feeling.
Mm.
Know who it is that's out there, because it's still your kid. It's
Yeah.
still your kid. Yes, they're terrified, yes, they're going through it, but it's still your kid. And you know who that is, whoever it is, you know them. And that's my thing. I knew who Deja was, even though I didn't know where Deja was.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, God, all I need you to do is just be you.
Yeah.
Just cover my baby. Just show up strong and just keep her covered because she's got the right stuff in her. And at the right time, you're going to bring her out. And I just had to keep trusting in that. I had to
Yeah.
keep leaning on that. And even if I'm being all the way real, I had to go see a therapist. I
Yeah.
did, because it got to a point where it was just emotionally and mentally too much for me by myself. I would talk to family members about it, but this was not something they were familiar with.
Right.
They couldn't relate. And I remember talking to a cousin who is just like my best friend. I call her my sister. And I was talking to her about it, and she was saying, you know what? I'm sorry that I just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And that's going to be what you run into so many days. And so find somebody. You got to search and you got to look. You got to look for somebody who knows, hey, I know what you're walking through. I know what you're walking through. And when you can't hear their voice, tap into what you feel. And just keep on pressing, because as long as you keep praying, it's gonna happen. It's
Right.
definitely gonna happen. They're gonna come back. I don't know how long it's gonna take. You just be ready when they come.
I think about um, just all the girls that don't get to come home,
Yeah.
right? And how you talked about their, like, you can still feel her, right? Like you share a spirit.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like, if I think about people closest to me that have passed away, some days I just still feel them, just like right
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
they're in the same place, but the different realm, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And like I pray for that. Like even when I pray over my son while he's, gone for the summer or whatever, I visualize him and I like will even take a deep breath out. Like I'm breathing the
Mhm.
spirit over him in his place of
Yes,
where he is.
ma'am.
And
Mhm.
then he'll send me a random text. And I'm like, I know you felt that. You know what I mean? Like you didn't
Right.
know you felt that, but you
Yep.
did.
Yes,
Because we're
ma'am.
spiritual beings having this human experience. And so
Yes, ma'am.
I just love that you spoke to that because I do believe like you were there with her that whole
Yep.
time, you
Yes,
know?
ma'am. Absolutely.
Mm. Paula, you're amazing. You are such a good mom. You're an amazing, strong woman. You have that like gift of like you just have the words, right? Of just speaking these beautiful truths into people's lives that like you probably don't even know you're doing it. Like it's just so natural for you.
I'm just
But
talking.
right. You just think, oh, I just said blue. And we're all like, what? Blue. Yes. Um, so, I mean, just thank you so much for sharing your heart and your story.
Oh, no
And
problem at all. Thank you
Deja,
for
I know
having me.
you're going to listen to this and or are already listening to this. And so we're just so glad that, you're home and you're doing amazing work and
Mhm.
all of it.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
working with her and doing it together. And y'all are freaking warriors. Okay. I was going to say, like,
We just want to make sure that we can, reach back and help somebody because that's
yeah.
a hard place to be as a parent and it's a hard place to be as a victim. And so, we after you go through something like that, you just can't just walk away from it.
Right.
You don't walk away and just continue living. You got to do something about something that major, and it's so major and it's so prevalent that yeah, it's not something I could just take laying down. So we got to
Right.
stay out there on the battlefield for sure.
I mean, I'm sure this has been like years in recovery of like the grief you guys have both had to endure and overcome, but you're absolutely right. Like walking back then through your grief. And this is therapy in and of itself, being able
Mhm.
to walk forward and like you
Mhm.
said, give a hand to somebody else
Yes,
because
ma'am.
you can't just forget about it, shove it down and walk away. That's not grieving well or healing, you know? And you guys
Right.
are doing it.
Yeah.
I love it. Paula, thank you again so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
If people want to reach out to you guys, how do you want them to do that?
Well, you can follow us at the Entity Haven. That is the organization Deja has founded, and it's going to be at theentityhaven.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Um, so come on by and see us. Let us know you stopped in. We'll definitely send you a shout out. If you want to meet us anywhere for donations or want to talk about, if you want us to come out and kind of make make people more aware of what's going on, you can definitely reach us there at those media outlets there or whatever. But yeah, we're standing by.
What an amazing story. Okay. Clearly cut from the same cloth. This warrior mom, this warrior daughter out there going back, reaching the hand back, like she said. You guys, if I can stress anything, it's that you haven't gone through what you went through to keep it to yourself. Such an amazing story. That is a gift. That is when God reaches in and says, in the middle of this crap, this junk, this stuff you're going through, which is horrible, and He is angry and as hell that you are going through it, He says, I can do something with that. And what He does is He turns it for good. And He helps you reach back and you help other people. And that is how freedom and healing comes, guys. Now, my next question to you, of course, has to be what are you going to do? You have heard this girl's story, you have heard her mother's story. So, what are you going to do now? There are things that you can't unhear, things that you can't unsee, but there is definitely something that you can do. So, let me ask you, what are you going to do now? You guys be sure to visit theentityhaven.com. Get involved. If you're in the Houston area, get involved. Make a donation, show up, invite Paula and Deja to come speak to a group. Start a prayer circle around ending human trafficking, sex trafficking. Get involved in your local city, in your state. We can put an end to this. It's within our realm of possibility. You guys, Jesus said when he left that we would do even greater things. So I have the faith to know that we can stop these things from happening in our world. So take your next step, be prayerful, see where God is calling you to, and remember, you guys, you've got gumption. You can do this.